Airline demotes black CEO to economy. Hours later, he freezes their $120 million budget. He had paid for first class, earned it, in fact, as the CEO of a company worth hundreds of millions. But when he walked onto that plane, everything changed. A flight attendant frowned, glanced at his ticket, then at his skin. Moments later, he was told to give up his seat for a white passenger. Humiliated, heart-pounding, he took the walk of shame to economy. What no one on that flight knew was that this man had the power to decide the airline's fate, and within hours, he'd make a move that would cost them $120 million. Marcus Bennett wasn't just another passenger boarding a flight that morning. He was a man who had built his life from the ground up, from a childhood filled with struggle to becoming the CEO of a global tech company. Every achievement had come with sacrifice, discipline, and relentless determination. First class wasn't a luxury for him. It was a symbol of the journey, a space he had earned after decades of hard work. He stepped onto the plane with quiet confidence, ticket in hand, nodding politely at the crew as he made his way down the aisle. His seat was waiting in the front row, spacious, comfortable, the kind of seat he rarely had time to enjoy given his hectic schedule. For Marcus, this was one of the rare chances to breathe, to reflect, before his next meeting with top executives that could decide the fate of millions in company investments. But life has a way of twisting the ordinary into something unforgettable. Just as he reached his seat, the air seemed to shift. A flight attendant's polite smile hardened. A white passenger nearby muttered something under their breath. Marcus felt the weight of eyes on him, scanning, judging, not for his success, not for his achievements, but for his skin. What Marcus didn't know was that this simple flight, this routine trip, was about to unravel into a humiliating confrontation that would test not only his patience but also his very dignity. And soon, the airline itself would learn just how dangerous it can be to underestimate the wrong man. Marcus adjusted his briefcase under the seat, ready to settle in. But before he could fasten his belt, the flight attendant leaned over with a rehearsed smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Sir," she said firmly, "there's been a change. I'll need you to move." Marcus blinked. "Excuse me? This is my assigned seat." He handed her the boarding pass, crisp and clear. Seat 1A, first class. She didn't look at it for long. Instead, she glanced at the white passenger standing, just a few feet away. An older man in an expensive suit, arms folded, lips curled into the kind of smirk Marcus had seen too many times before. "This gentleman," the attendant continued, "needs this seat. We'll have to relocate you to economy." The words hit like a slap. Marcus felt the heat rise in his chest. He wasn't a man easily rattled. Boardrooms and billion-dollar deals had sharpened his composure. But this wasn't business. This was personal. Passengers around him shifted, uncomfortably, some pretending not to notice, others whispering. A woman gasped under her breath. "Is this really happening?" Marcus kept his voice steady. "I paid for this seat. I have every right to be here." But the attendant's tone hardened. "Sir, if you don't cooperate, we'll have to involve security." Security? The word echoed like a threat, heavy with the weight of a system too quick to punish men who looked like him. Marcus's pulse quickened. He thought of his childhood, of teachers who doubted him, of managers who dismissed him, of doors slammed shut for reasons never spoken but always understood. And now, here he was, a CEO, a leader, responsible for thousands of employees worldwide, being told, in front of strangers, that he didn't belong. The white passenger stepped closer, his voice dripping with arrogance. "Come on, son. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." Son. That word. Marcus felt the sting of centuries in its casual cruelty. He stood slowly, deliberately, meeting the man's eyes with calm intensity. For a moment, the cabin went silent. Everyone was watching. Everyone was waiting. Marcus's mind raced. He could argue. He could resist. He could explode with the anger that burned inside, but he also knew this wasn't just about him. One wrong move, and headlines would twist his story into something it wasn't. So he reached for his phone instead, his voice calm but sharp. If this airline is going to downgrade a paying first-class passenger because of his skin color, then every person here deserves to know. And trust me, this won't end here. The attendant hesitated. Passengers whispered louder now. Some raised their own phones, recording. Tension thickened like storm clouds. Marcus didn't move. He wasn't giving up his seat, not yet. But what he did next would determine whether this was just another quiet act of humiliation or the spark that ignited something much bigger. The silence inside the cabin snapped when two uniformed security officers stepped in. Their eyes went straight to Marcus, not the attendant, not the smirking passenger, him. "Sir, we need you to come with us," one officer said, voice clipped, hand resting too close to his holster. Marcus's jaw tightened. "For what? I haven't broken any rules. I'm sitting in the seat I purchased." The white passenger scoffed. "See? He's making a scene." Phones were out now, recording every second. The tension was electric. Marcus could hear whispers, some supportive, some doubtful, but the humiliation was crushing. He had worked his entire life to sit here in this exact seat, and now, in front of dozens of strangers, they were treating him like he didn't belong. The officer stepped closer. "Sir, last warning, get up." Marcus locked eyes with him, his heart pounding but his voice steady. "No, not until you explain why a black man in first class is less deserving than someone else." Gasps rippled through the cabin. The attendant's face flushed. For the first time, doubt flickered in her eyes. The older white passenger barked, "Enough of this nonsense! Remove him so we can take off!" But then, Marcus reached into his jacket. The officers stiffened, hands twitching toward their weapons. Passengers froze. A breathless second stretched into eternity. And then, Marcus slowly pulled out a sleek leather wallet. He flipped it open, revealing an embossed gold badge, FAA Administrator. The officers blinked. The cabin went dead silent. The smirk slid right, off the passenger's face. The attendant's mouth opened, then shut. Marcus leaned forward, voice sharp as steel. "You were about to drag the man who controls your airline's $120 million federal compliance budget off this flight. Do you still want to proceed?" The officer's hand slipped away from his holster. The passenger's arrogance melted into panic. The flight attendant stammered, Sir, this is a misunderstanding." But Marcus wasn't finished. He stood tall, scanning the cabin, his voice cutting through the thick silence. "No, this is not a misunderstanding. This is exactly what it looks like." The entire plane held its breath. What would he do next? For a long moment, the plane was silent, every eye fixed on Marcus, waiting. He could feel the weight of decades of moments just like this. Moments where people who looked like him were silenced, humiliated, or erased. But not today. He held the badge high, his voice calm but unshakable. "I don't owe you my seat. I don't owe you my dignity. What I do owe to every black man, every black woman, and every child who will one day sit in these seats is the truth." The officers lowered their gaze. The arrogant passenger shrank into his seat, unable to meet Marcus's eyes. And the attendant, who moments earlier had looked so certain, now looked as if the ground had given way beneath her. "Your airline," Marcus continued, "is about to face consequences. Not because I want revenge, but because you must learn. This can't happen again." Whispers broke into applause, hesitant at first, then louder. Some passengers even stood. For the first time since boarding, Marcus felt the sting of humiliation ease into something else. Resolve. By the time the plane landed, word had already spread. The video, uploaded by a passenger in row 4, was going viral. The headlines would come next. And the airline? Their executives would wake up the next morning to an urgent message. Their $120 million FAA budget review had just been frozen. But the real victory wasn't in the money. It was in the truth being seen, unfiltered, undeniable. Marcus walked out of the airport that night, taller than he'd ever felt. This wasn't just his fight. It was a fight for millions who'd been told they didn't belong. And the question echoing across social media, across living rooms, across boardrooms, was the one Marcus had left ringing in the cabin. How many more times must we prove we belong before you finally see us?